All right, Blender Maniacs, let's go ahead and add in a little bit more detail to our fish here. Right now, he's looking a little bit blocky. So what we want to do is first, let's go into object mode right here. And we're going to go ahead and left click and drag and select the eyes and the fish. And right click. And you can see the reason that it's blocky right now is because it's set to a shading mode called Shade Flat, where basically the lighting and the shading is very, it goes on the edges of each of the faces. As you can see right here, in between each angle of the edges of each face, there is a sharp shadow or a sharp line, which makes you be able to see kind of all the geometry, and it just doesn't look nice. So we're going to right click and select Shade Smooth to smooth shade it. And there we go. That already looks so much better. Look at him. He looks pretty sweet. All right. Next, let me make sure to turn on my screencast keys as well. And there we go. Now, let's go back. Let's select the fish, go back into sculpt mode. And here we're going to go into draw mode and add in some more precise details. Now for the detail, we're going to have to increase the resolution right here so that we have more geometry to play with. Let's first re-enable dynamic topology and hit 3 to go into side view. Boom, there we go. Now what we're going to add is basically kind of the bones that are in the fins right here, or the cartilage that helps to hold the fin together. Now right here, the resolution is set to 16. Now before we do that, let's go ahead and quickly select Detail Flood Fill to basically redistribute all the detail evenly throughout the fish. And then what we want to do is change this resolution right here from 16, and we're going to change it to 60. So yes, 60, we're going to hit enter. And now if we go over here, you will see that, especially if we go into wireframe and I hit the F key to scale down my cursor or my brush, and then if I hit left click to draw on here, and I'm going to draw twice on there, you can see that in wireframe there is a lot more geometry right there than before, as you can see right there. And so with the detail size being up, or the resolution being up, our detail is much finer, and we could add in a lot more detail to our sculpt. Now I'm going to hit 3 to go back into side view, and let's continue and add in some more detail here to this. I'm just going to go add another one right here. Boom, like that. Let's add another one right here. And again, you could just add however many you want. I'm just going to do it like that. Now, one thing we could do to help it transition better is if we increase our brush size and hold down the shift key, we could just smooth out the very bottom right there, and also smooth out the very top right here, and the very top right there, and right there, so that it transitions a little bit better. And look at that, just with that slight amount of detail, it already looks a lot better. Super sweet. All right, next thing we want to do is with the tail. Let's go to the tail, shall we? And let's enable the reference images quickly once again. And we can see that the tail, we need to grab it out a little bit more because it's not really conforming to the image that much. So I'm going to hit the F key, scale up my brush, and I'm just going to conform this a little bit better to the tail. Now, you can make your tail look however you want. You could give it a completely different shape if you want. As you can see, some parts of the fish, I just made it a little bit different than the reference image. I'm also going to bring this part in a little bit, and that should be fine. All right, let's deselect the reference images once again. Go back to the draw brush, and let's draw in our goldfish cracker. No, I'm just kidding. He's going to be offended from hearing that. All right, you're not a goldfish cracker. All right, so now what I want to do, same thing as the top fin. I'm just going to left click and drag make sure dynamic topology is on. Left click and drag a kind of cartilage or bone right here. Then we'll do one right here. And again, just drawing it. Whoa, I didn't really follow the line right there properly. Just kind of drawing it twice over it so that's a little bit more defined. And then one right there. And there we go. And I'm kind of making it conform to the angle of the tail. Same thing with this bottom one right here. Let's do it again on this side. So right here. Boom, like that. And then right here. Boom, like that. And then one more just for good luck, kind of on the ridge right here. And there we go. Sweet. And just that already makes it look a lot better. Now, obviously, let's make it transition a little bit better between the start and the end. So I'm going to hold shift and kind of just smooth these out right here. And hold shift and smooth these out at the end as well. And right there, and right here. And right here. And right there. All right, sweet. Now I'm just going to smooth that out a little bit right here. Nice. All right, let's do the last fin right here. So for this one, kind of the same thing we just did right now. I'm going to hit 7 to go into top view. And we are going to add in, let me go ahead and smooth this right here. So right here, I'm just going to smooth that a little bit. And now we're just going to hit the F key to make the brush a little bit smaller. And then like we did before, we're just going to draw this from over here and left click and drag these out like that. Drag another one out right here like that. Let's drag one more right there. Boom. And I want one kind of on the edge right there. And maybe even one right here on the very edge right there. And then once again, shift to smooth that out like so. And right here as well. And look at that. Just that little amount of detail changes a lot. By the way, when we sculpted, because now we sculpt with a resolution of 60, you can see that if I go into wireframe, you can see that obviously there's a lot more geometry to the mesh. And so when we smooth it out now, when we hold down shift to smooth it out, it's a lot smoother, the transition to smooth it out, because we have a lot more geometry to play with basically. And we could smooth it out a little bit here as well. Again, this is our first sculpt, so we're going pretty simple with the detail. All right, that's looking great so far. Next, what I want to do is basically go over some parts of the fish with a resolution of 60, because as you can see, for example, the lips and the eyes and stuff are very blocky, because before we only had 12 resolution and 60 is much better. So with that, let's hit the F key to scale this down a little bit to about here. And I'm just going to go over the lips here with the draw brush, draw it on here. And then we could hold down shift and you will see that now it drew on extra geometry. So it's a lot smoother. And we could do the same right here. And look at that. That looks a lot better already. And then we could smooth out the in between the lips as well. Now I do want to pinch them together a little bit more, so I'm going to select the pinch brush, one to go into front view, and let's just pinch these together a little bit more like that. Let's go back to the draw brush, see how that looks. And much better already. All right, let's do the same thing with the eyes. For the eyes, I'm just going to left click and drag here with the draw brush over this, and then hold down shift and smooth it out. Now here I kind of want like a little crease in the eye. So I'm going to hold down control and just crease that in there like that and make it kind of exaggerative, like so. And then hold down shift to smooth it down a little bit. All right, look at that. He's already looking better. Now, for the fin right here, where the fins join into the body, I kind of want to add a crease to it right here. So to do that, first I'm going to draw around here. But I want the strength to be very, very low, because actually, instead of drawing and making it, making it raised, I just want to add geometry. So I'm going to hit Shift F, and let's bring the strength all the way down to like 0.1. And then I'm just going to draw on here. And this won't really change the geometry because the strength is so low. But then I could hold down Shift, and you can see that we've added a bunch of geometry. And I'm going to go on the bottom right here, do the same, and hold down Shift, because now I want to use the crease brush to crease this together, because I think it'll give it a cool little look. So the crease brush right here is really useful for wrinkles and things like of this nature. If I select crease, basically what it does is it will crease together your geometry, kind of like pinching it, but I feel like it does a little bit of a better job, and I personally like the crease option over the pinch option. So here I'm just going to crease it a little bit like that and make it look like the fin is actually connecting to the body. So mainly on the top right there. And like so. And there we go. That gives it a little bit of a nice little touch to it, and maybe go around a little bit more right there. All right, sweet. Now I want to smooth this out a little bit as well, because it's a little blocky right there. And there we go. So if you have places where there's too much, where the geometry is too big, or there's not enough geometry, like for example here, you could go with the draw brush and put the strength very, very low, and then just draw on top of it, and then hold down Shift and smooth it out, and boom, there you go. Look at that. The geometry has been added and smoothed to it. Pretty sweet, eh? All right, and then here, just as a little bit of a character thing, I kind of want to give him a, I'm going to hold down Control with the draw brush, and let's increase the strength again to something like 0.4. Hold down Control, and I'm going to put the brush size way down, and I'm just going to give him a little bit of a, a little bit of a wrinkle there, type of indent like that. And let's make it even more noticeable like that, and then hold the Shift key to smooth it out. And that just gives him a little bit of character, because he's got a little chin. I'm going to smooth it even more so that we don't really confuse it with his mouth. All right, sweet. Now, what we're going to do next, in the next video, we will take a look at, and for example, right here on the tail, we could definitely get the draw brush, Shift F to decrease the strength, and just draw on here, and then hold down Shift and smooth it out a little bit. All right, in the next video, we will be adding in the scales, sculpting with a texture, which is super awesome and really exciting. So make sure to save this, File, Save As, and save this, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now, au revoir. All right, so now what I want to do is I just want to go over here, and we're going to smooth out a little bit the rest of the body, and then we're going to be sculpting with a texture just to show you how you can sculpt with a texture, which is super sweet. We're going to be adding in the scales of the fish. So for now, I just want to go in here and keep in mind, the more geometry and the more vertices in your mesh, the slower your computer will go. You can see that right now we don't have that much. We have 46,000 vertices. And for a sculpt, again, that's not too much. Sometimes sculpts get into the 1 million, 2 million, and 3 million range, which starts to get quite a bit. Even 500,000 gets quite a bit of vertices. But right now at 46,000, we don't have that many. Now, obviously, right now we have dynamic topology turned on with a resolution of 60. And I just want to go here and bring my brush up quite big. And right here, we could see that on here, it's a little bit blocky as far as right here. So we could just actually hit the shift key to smooth it out. And I don't necessarily want to add in resolution if we don't need to. And plus with the scales and everything, we're going to add resolution there anyways. But as far as smoothing it out, for example, here, we could go ahead and with a resolution of 60, we could see that if we draw on here, and then hit the shift key to smooth it out, you can see we added a lot of geometry there and we were able to smooth it out quite a bit more. Now for the top of the eyes right here, we could as well left click to draw and then shift to smooth it out since it's a pretty prominent part of the fish. But for example, over here on the belly, I don't necessarily want to add in a bunch of tiny geometry because it's not really needed since right there won't be detail. And like I said, we don't want to add unnecessary detail because then it will increase our render times or just our viewport times. Here, I'm just going to left click to draw and smooth that out a little bit, add a little bit more geometry to these parts since, again, those are important parts. And then just smooth out here. All right, so sculpting with a texture. Let me just add some geometry here. Again, I have the draw brush and I have the strength way down so that when I draw on here, you can see it doesn't really mess with the geometry, but it does add it so that then after when I hit the shift key to smooth it, it smooths it out nicely, but I'm not actually changing the structure of the geometry itself. And let's do the same quickly with the tail like that and down here as well. All right, that should be good. Let me just check right there. And then we are about to sculpt with the texture, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's get right to it. Sculpting with a texture. Let me check something here. Let me just smooth out right there and right here a little bit as well. All right, so let's rock and roll. I also just want to, with the draw brush still, I'm going to hit Control and let me hit Shift F, bring up the value to about 0.4 on the strength, and then I'm going to bring the brush down and hold down Control and just draw in the mouth here just a little bit so that's a little bit more prominent, and then maybe hit the Shift key to smooth it out. All right, there we go. Our fish is looking pretty sweet. Now, to sculpt with a texture. Basically, when you sculpt with the texture, a couple things to keep in mind. You want to use what's called an alpha image. Now, an alpha image, let's go ahead and load it actually. So in the resources of this video, go ahead and download the alpha scale image for this fish right here. Once you've done so, we're just going to go ahead and go to the texture panel right here. And we're going to add a new texture and go ahead and click on open and open that image. So now we've opened it, we can see that the image comprises of black and white values. So an alpha map is black and white values, where a black color is a value of 0 for the sculpt, and a white value is a value of 1 for the sculpt, and anything in between goes from 0 to 1, such as grays and darker, lighter blacks and darker whites, etc., etc. So it's a black and white image basically, and depending on if it's black or white, it will dictate where it sculpts. Now we could see the image right here, and it looks like some kind of fish scales. By the way, to maximize my window, I just hit Control Spacebar right here to maximize and minimize my window. Which reminds me, let me turn on the screencast keys. All right, going back into sculpt mode. So we got this texture here. Now if we hit Shift F, check it out. We hit Shift F, we can now see a texture underneath our brush. And now if we increase the strength or decrease it, it will increase or decrease the strength of that texture or the intensity of it. Also, if we hit the F key, we will see the size or the smallness of the texture. Now, a couple things to keep in mind using textures to sculpt. Using textures to sculpt is a great way to do it. However, there are some downsides to it where when you sculpt with a texture, it usually requires a lot of geometry. For example, right here, our dynamic topology, wrong button, our dynamic topology, if we turn it on, is set to 60. Let's go ahead and try to sculpt this on here a little bit. And you can see it looks pretty terrible. It looks absolutely hideous. I mean, it looks a little bit better if we scale it up, but you can see that it's not really that great. And the reason being is because it needs so much geometry and resolution to be able to sculpt with a texture. So I don't necessarily recommend sculpting with a texture. We're doing it on this model here just to show you that you can sculpt with the texture, and I'd rather do it on a simple model than a more complicated model later on, because a more complicated model will be even more sculpting with the texture. So I'd rather do it on a small, simple model where we'll just do like half of the body here. So for this, we need to increase this resolution. Let's try to increase it. Well, again, let's try see what it's like right now. Let's also decrease the strength because it's at 1. Let's put the strength to like 0.5. So strength at 0.5. Let's see how that looks. Looks terrible. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. Also, depending on how small you have it, like if you have it that small, your brush, it will look really bad. I'm going to hit Control Z. Or if you have your brush really big like that, it looks a little bit better because it doesn't need as much resolution, obviously, because the scales are a lot bigger. So we're going to have the scales somewhat big on this mesh right here. And I'm going to hit Control Z. We still do need a higher resolution though. So let's bump this up to, let's say 100. Let's do 100, see what that looks like. I'm going to scale this down just a little bit. And you can see that at 100, it looks pretty good. And what we could enable too is smooth shading right here. Because smooth shading, remember when we went back into object mode and we right-clicked and select smooth shading or flat shading? Well, this enables, man, I can't even talk. I'm excited about texture painting. This enables smooth shading during the sculpt. So now we could see that it looks a lot better because without smooth shading, it's a bit jagged and stuff, so we could get a better representation of how it looks. And it looks pretty freaking sweet. So what we're going to do, and again, this is a cartoonish fish, I'm going to make these scales relatively big, so I'm going to hit the F key to scale this up quite a bit. And let's see, depending on, I'm going to make them somewhat like that size right there. So again, depending on how zoomed in or zoomed out you are right here. All right, now I'm going to bring my brush size to about this, and I'm just going to left click and add in some scales there, here, left click all the way around to there, and right here, and right there, and then just add in some scales wherever you want. I'm just clicking one click at a time. Make sure that it doesn't go on the fin as well, because then it'll look a little strange. So about there, and then let's rotate a little bit. We're gonna go up here, add in some scales right there, and that should be good. So check it out. How much cooler does our fish look now with all these scales? Pretty sweet. However, we have definitely increased this amount of vertices. You can see we have now 195,000 vertices. And if we go into wireframe, look at all this geometry. It's ridiculous. Now let's do one thing quickly to make it look a little bit nicer. With holding down the shift key, we're just going to go on the edge right here where it transitions from the flesh into the scales, and hold down the shift key and just kind of move your mouse like this to kind of transition it nicely and to kind of fade it in from the from the skin to the scales. It just helps it blend a little bit better. And we could do the same thing right here. Just hold down the shift key, help that blend a little bit like that. All right, sweet. So how cool is that? Again, sculpting with textures, very, very useful. However, it adds an enormous amount of polygons and vertices. So you just have to keep that in mind. However, it does look super sweet. And having to sculpt all these by hand, one at a time, would just be a pain in the butt. Also, you know, on this scale texture, it's somewhat detailed. You could get a more simple scale texture where it's just like a black background with a white curved line like this, and it would take a lot less geometry because there would be less for Blender to calculate as far as the texture. You could get a more simple texture that will add less detail. Again, depending on how many black and white values and in-between values there are, the more detail it will have to add. Also, depending on how complex it is, obviously. All right, so there we go. We have now learned how to sculpt with a texture. Pretty sweet. Our fish is looking sweet, I would say. All right, definitely don't want to eat them now. Let's go ahead and save this file. Save as. I'm going to save this as number 6. Well done, ladies and gentlemen. In the next video, we will continue. I'll see you in there. I'll see you there. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, who's ready for some seared ahi tuna? No, okay. Now, you didn't know that this was a cooking course as well, did you? Well, hey, I am French, so we might as well throw in some cooking here as well while we're making this beautiful fish. Now, what we're going to do in this next part, now that we're done with this simple little sculpt, when I was making this course, I was wondering what to include in it, and I thought, Alex, just give them everything. So although this is a sculpting course, there are different parts of sculpting, and there's one certain part of sculpting called retopologizing. Now, retopology basically allows for you to recreate your mesh, because right now, if we go to object mode right now, and some of you will like retopologizing, some of you may not like it because we actually have to recreate our mesh, but it's very, very useful, and here's why. First of all, you can sculpt something without retopologizing, okay? You don't have to retopologize it. This is not a requirement. But if you're going to, let's say you want to animate this model. If you want to animate this model or have it in an animation, you definitely want to retopologize your model. And retopologizing basically means if we hit Z to go into wireframe right now, you can see that there is what seems like an infinite amount of vertices here, which is not... I mean, it's cool because we were able to sculpt all this detail, but it's not really conducive to animation because it's just way too heavy. We have 196,000 vertices. And so if you were to try to animate this or rig it, it just wouldn't work. And so what retopologizing allows for you to do is we're able to recreate this model into a low poly or less amount of vertices mesh. And then, since that low poly mesh doesn't have all this detail of the scales and the fins right here, we will then bake. I told you guys there was baking. Aren't you excited? We will bake, which basically means we'll take the high resolution detail here from the sculpted model onto the low poly model. And what this allows for you to do is to have the best of both worlds. You could have a low poly or low amount of vertices model, but you could have the high detail of a sculpted model through what are called normal maps or displacement maps. So basically through images. And again, this is not required. You could just sculpt like this and you could render out an image of a sculpt if you want, totally fine. But again, if you want to animate your model, you need to retopologize. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to throw everything in here. We're going to retopologize at least this fish right here, as this will be quite simple and you'll see the process of retopologizing and how to bake the detail from the high poly onto the low poly. So with that, let's get right to it. In the next video, we will retopologize. However, the first thing I want to do, let's go to sculpt mode, and I'll let you do this on your own, but all I'm going to do is turn on dynamic topology, make sure that's on. I'm going to turn the count to, let's do 60. And let's turn off our texture, because right now if we sculpt on here, it's our texture. So just hit the X icon at the top right here to remove the texture, and now you can see that we have our brush again. All right, let me hit Control Z to undo that, because now it looks like he has a tumor. It's a tumor. All right, enough Arnold, get to the chopper. Now, what I'm gonna do and what you can do, I'm just gonna go around the fish here, and I'm gonna hold down Shift to just smooth out some areas, such as here, it's a little bit bumpy. And in some other areas, like right here, I may left click and draw a little bit just to fill it in a little bit, and then hold down Shift. And then right here, maybe fill it in a little bit. And so I'm just going to go around my fish and just kind of smooth out some parts of it. For example, right here on the mouth, maybe hold down Control, make it a little bit sharper right there, smooth it out with the smooth brush, and just make it a little bit nicer. So just a little bit of cosmetic touch up, you know, and I will let you do that on your own. I'm not going to do anything dramatic. I'm mainly going to go around with the smooth brush and the draw brush and kind of, you know, refine it or smooth it out just a little bit, so that's on some parts it might be a little bit rough or a little bit bumpy. So you could do that on your own. I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, let's get right to it. So for retopologizing, what you want to do is, first of all, let's go into object mode, and we're going to go ahead and go into the layout view right here, away from sculpting to layout, just because right here we get some extra things such as the grid floor and the origin point that we do not see during sculpting. All right, now retopologizing again is not really, obviously it's not sculpting, we're going to be modeling, but it is part of the sculpting workflow. So if you want to be a master at sculpting in Blender or any software really, it's good to know retopology and what it is and how to do it. So retopology again is more modeling than sculpting, but it's part of the workflow, or it can be. Again, you could sculpt without retopologizing if you want, but then you cannot really animate your model too much. So let's get right to it. First thing we're going to do is, for retopologizing, we need to add in a vertex or a plane. We're basically going to be tracing over this sculpt right here with a mesh, which has a lot less vertices than our 198,000. So for that, I'm going to hit Shift A, add in a mesh plane, and let's just bring this up, and we're going to hit RX 90 like that, and hit GY and bring it out. And let's just bring it to his face right here. And I'm going to hit GX and bring it to right there. We're going to bring it right in the middle of his face or his head. So like, make sure the origin point is right in the middle right there. Because yes, we're going to be smart about this, and we are going to mirror this onto the other side. But first things first, let's just hit S to scale this way down, and GZ and bring it up to about there. All right, now how do we trace this over? Because if we hit tab to go into edit mode, we could, like we saw before, extrude this out. But we want this plane right here to be snapping and conforming to the fish right here, so that's a lot easier to trace over. To do that, we're basically going to turn on snapping. So if we go up here, we could turn on snapping. You could see this little magnet icon. Obviously, it's to snap to things. And we're going to change the increment. Right now, it's snapping to increment. We could change it to vertex, edge, or face. We're going to change it to the face right there. And then we're going to also select project individual elements right here. Now, what this allows for us to do is the snapping is on, and if we go into edit mode, you can see if I grab this vertex now, you can see that right here, I'm going to hit the delete key on my numpad to zoom back into this vertex. You can see that it's far away from the fish. But if I hit G to grab and then left click, you can see that it's now snapped to the mesh behind it. And so if we hit the A key to select all of this and hit G to move it, and then left click, you can see that it now snaps to the sculpt of our fish and it conforms to it. How sweet is that? Now, obviously we have an issue right here where it's kind of being hidden by the sculpt. So what we're going to do is go down here to visit viewport display. And in viewport display, we're going to select in front. And this will basically display or project this object in front of other objects so that we could see it better. And now check it out. How sweet is that? Pretty freaking sweet. All right, now what we want to do is a couple more things. We're going to go ahead and go to the modifiers tab right here. We're going to add a modifier. We're going to add a shrink wrap modifier. So let's go ahead and add one right here under shrink wrap. And this will basically conform the mesh a little bit more to the fish or the sculpt. Shrink wrap basically takes your mesh and conforms it around another object or another mesh, kind of like you were to take, shrink wrap paper and cover it around your mesh. It's pretty sweet. And for the target right here, we're just going to select our target as our cube, which is our fish right there. Now, right here, you could see the offset amount. It's at 0, but if you offset it, you could see it depends. It will basically offset it from far away from conforming with the mesh or very close. Now, it's also good to enable this right here so that it conforms around the modifier result. So now we could actually see it in real time how it looks. And we're just going to set this back to 0 how it was before. And there we go. That will just give us a little bit more precision. Sweet. The next modifier we're going to add is a mirror modifier because once again, we only want to model half of the fish. So we're going to go here and add in a mirror modifier. And to get it mirroring properly, we're going to hit GX in edit mode and bring this out. Now, obviously, we want it to snap together. So we're going to enable clipping right there. And what clipping does is if we hit GX and bring it together, you can see that it now merges it together just like that. All right, sweet. So we are now basically ready to retopologize this fish. One last thing I want to do is because it's kind of hard to see gray on gray and it's going to be kind of like walking in the dark in a dark alley with black goggles on and a headband around your eyes. Because, the colors don't really contrast well. We're going to go to the Materials tab, add a new material, and down here, we're going to change it in Viewport Display, change the color to anything you want. I'm just going to make it a blue color. All right, there we go. Now we are ready to rock and roll. So what you want to do when retopologizing, you want to get the major loops of your mesh in place. Now again, whereas sculpting is free-flowing and just artistic and you could do whatever you want, modeling unfortunately is not that way too much. It's more mathematical and precise because you have to connect vertices, etc. So again, when sculpting, you do not have to retopologize. And again, if you really hate retopologizing so much, you could go ahead and skip this video if you want, but I highly suggest watching it because it will definitely benefit you as far as knowing how to do it. Now, for this, like I said, we want to do the major contours first. So I'm just going to hit 1 to go into front view, A to select everything, and I'm going to grab this and move it up here. We're going to do the loop around the eyes first. Now, since this is conforming and snapping to the fish, all we have to do, if we hit the, let me bring these in a little bit. So we're going to shift select both of those, bring them in a little bit, and A to select everything, and I'm going to bring it down a little bit. So all we have to do is if we shift select these two vertices, check it out, and hit E to extrude, we could then extrude these out, and it will basically conform along the fish because we have snapping on. Now, an even easier way to do it, if we hold down Control and right click, it will extrude for us and then automatically snap it. How sweet. So here, let's go ahead. I did it one there. Let's go ahead and control left click here. One more. Control left click here. One more. Control left click here. Control left click one more time here. We're going to control left click again right here. 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 And then here we're just going to hit E and bring it in all the way. And so here, just if you want to know, total, I have 12 vertices total around here. And again, I selected that by Alt left clicking the vertex loop. And now he looks like Robin or Batman the fish, because I'm Batman fish. All right. All right, so there we go. We got Batman fish. Brilliant. So let's go ahead and continue. We're gonna loop out a little bit more. We're gonna loop out the mouth area. So loop it out. I don't even know if that's a word, but you know, technicalities. Here, we're gonna select these two vertices here. E to extrude and bring these down like so. And what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and add a loop around the mouth. So I'm going to hit Control R, add a loop cut in the middle right here, and right click. And then I'm going to select these two vertices. And once again, Control R, and I'm going to align the loop cuts that we cut out to align it with these vertices here. So I'm going to hit Control R, add a loop cut there. By the way, let's do one thing as well. Obviously, you saw that I selected the fish, which is not good. So we want to make the fish unselectable. I'm going to go into object mode by hitting tab. We're going to go over here, and right now we can't make it unselectable, but if we select this little drop down right here, we could display or toggle what is visible here as far as what we could check or uncheck. Let's select the selection icon right there, and now we can make objects selectable or unselectable. So the fish is obviously the cube. We're going to select that, or deselect it, I should say. And now we cannot select the fish. Now let's do the same for the eyes. Why not? For sphere, let's unselect it. So now we could only select this. All right, going back into edit mode, we could also see that this right here wasn't completely connected. So I'm just going to hit G to grab it and connect it properly. All right, going back to here, after that little delay, we're going to hit Control right click. And then you can see that these align nicely right there. I'm going to Control right click here so that these align there. And then here it's going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to Control right click here. R to rotate. I'm going to rotate this a little bit, grab it, Control right click right here. And then Control right click right here so that these align right there like that. And then right here, I'm just going to Alt left click this loop, and I'm just going to turn these a little bit. I'm going to Alt left click this loop right here as well and hit G twice. Or actually I'm not, because with snapping it kind of messes it up. So again, I got this kind of shape right here, and then these align like that. Let's go ahead and continue. I'm going to hit Control right click here so that again it aligns with this right there. Control right click here, align those ones there, and then E to extrude and just bring that in. So now we got a we got our fish who is really, I don't know, he's ready for a masquerade or something. But there we go. And what's really cool about doing this is it could help you to be better at modeling too, because it allows for you to model in a different kind of way while having like a reference image or a reference model in the background that you kind of trace over. So now I'm just going to do one other major loop around the whole head, or the do fish have heads? I don't know. Anyways, around the whole base of the head, I guess they do. So for that, I'm just going to select these two vertices here, or these two I should say. So those two, hit 7 to go into top view, and I'm going to hit Control left click once there. Make sure to hit G and merge them together, and Control left click one more time there. And then what I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and hit Control R, left click, right click, and add a loop cut there. And now I want to go ahead and I'm going to select these two right here, these two vertices, And once again, we're just going to hit Control left click and extrude these out. I'm going to extrude it once there to line up again with this vertex here. Control left click, align it with there. Isn't this fun? This is like math. It's like connect the dots. Control left click once again right there to align it with this vertex here. Again, because after we're just going to be connecting all this together, which is going to be really cool. So we just want to align the vertices with the correct amount of vertices. Align it right there. I'm going to control right click one right here like that. And maybe bring these out a little bit more like that. Alt left click this, bring it out, and bring this out a little bit. We'll adjust it a little bit later as well. By the way, one thing that's annoying right here is that when we're on this view, we can see the back faces of the mesh right here, and it just adds a lot of confusion. So let's go over here to this little drop down arrow, and we're going to select back face culling right there, and that will remove the back faces of the geometry. Pretty sweet. So that helps to clear things up so that we're not, we don't got a bunch of stuff everywhere. I'm going to control left click here, add a loop cut. And then here, we will align it more later. So I'm just going to control left click once here, another time here. And then here, I'm going to do it once, twice, 3 times. And here we will just hit the E key and bring this in together and merge it. All right, sweet. So there we go. And we could adjust this a little bit to make it a little bit straighter, and boom. So that will be it for this part of the retopologizing. We got a lot of the major loops around the face area. So with that, let's go ahead and save this file, save as, and we're going to save this as fish number 7 or 7. And I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and continue retopologizing our sushi. I mean, our fish right here. So with that, we want, like I said, when you retopologize, you want to put in the major loops around your model, and then you could just reconnect them or connect them after very, very easily by just hitting the F key and bridging the edge loops together. So let's add in, we're going to add in a loop right around this fin right here, a loop around the top, and a loop around the tail right here as well. So let's do just that. I'm going to select this, hit tab to go into edit mode, 7 to go into top view, and let us retopologize our fish. All right, so here I'm just going to hit E to extrude, bring it out to about right here. And then, like I said, I want, I'm going to hit GY. I want a loop to go around the whole top fin right there. I'm just going to hit delete on my numpad to have it recenter and refocus on those vertices because it's kind of out of whack right now. Man, look at those scales. They look good. Although I do not like scales on my fish when eating. All right. Man, I got to stop thinking about food. I'm going to make you guys hungry. So now for this, what we're going to do is we're going to select these 2 vertices right here and hit EX and bring these out just a little bit. And then we're going to select these 2 right here, so those 2, and we're going to hit E to extrude, Y, and just bring them out on the Y axis to create this nice loop cut around here. E, Y, and bring it out. And let's actually see, we will adjust these later. Actually, let's adjust them now. So for these, I'm just going to align them with the bone or the cartilage part of the top. And again, we won't be actually modeling these most likely because we're going to be using the normal maps and displacement maps on here. So a really cool little shortcut key is hitting G twice, and that allows for you to edge slide a loop. So we could alt left click this loop right here, G twice, and look at that. It's like magic, fish magic. All right, then let's select both of these, and I'm just going to hit G. And so we're going to bring this one so it aligns with this one so it aligns with that one roughly. And I'm just going to bring that in a little bit. All right, going to select these two, back into top view. Everything good happens in top view. We're going to hit E to extrude. I don't think I had both of them selected. E to extrude. We're going to bring it to about here where it lines up again with this line right here. E to extrude. Line it up with this line right here. E to extrude here. We'll line it up with this one. And one more E to extrude to the back right here. Now to connect this, how do we want to do it? Well, quite simple. Because I want a loop cut around here, we're going to create that kind of topology. And topology is just a fancy word for how the vertices, edges, and faces flow on a mesh. You can see that right here. If we hit E to extrude one more time, R to rotate it so that it's facing each other like that, we could then just hit E one more time and snap it together. And make sure to hit G, and so it's completely snapped together. Now, the topology of this, or the flow of the faces, is not exactly how I want it, because if I hit Control R, if I were to add a loop cut around here, you can see that it goes from here down to here. And I don't want that. Although you could see at the top right here, check it out, it's nice and it curves around right here. So I'd like the same thing right here for it to curve around right here when I hit Control R if I need to add loop cuts. But right now it's going all the way down, and it will go down to the face right there. So what we can do is we're going to redirect the topology or the flow of the mesh. Yes, we could do that as well. Of course, this is Blender. We could do whatever we want. So right here, we could see one thing. First of all, that right here, I'm going to Alt left click these vertices and hit GX and bring them out so that to make sure they're snapped together. The next thing is I want to select these two vertices here. And let me go in top view, 7 on the numpad. I'm going to hit the V key. Now the V key is for V is very, very extraordinary. No, I'm kidding. Okay. This is not a Frank Sinatra song, although it can be. All right, a Frank Sinatra course, I mean. All right, we're going to hit V, and V is to rip vertices, so you're able to rip them. Man, V, you would think it would have something to do with not ripping, but ripping is pretty intense. So yes, the V key rips your vertices, so we could rip it like that. And then what we're going to do is hit E to extrude right here, bring it out like so, R to rotate, and we're just going to hit E to extrude one more time and bring these together, and then just hit G to make sure that they snap together. Now I'm just going to round this off a little bit. And what this does is if we hit Control R, if we were to add a loop cut here, you can see that it goes nicely around there and no longer down here. However, we definitely need to connect this up right here. So what we're going to do is select these two vertices here and these two here. So these four, hit the F key to fill those in. We could Alt left click these vertices, G twice, and just edge slide them out a little bit so it's more proportional. And then we're just going to shift select these four and hit the F key, and bada boom, bada bing. That's a French expression, by the way. You can see that now we have it connected, but this topology or this flow here goes around in a nice circle, which is exactly what we want for here. All right, we're going to do kind of the same thing for the tail. We want one that loops around the tail like that. For that, let's go ahead and select these vertices here. We're going to make it quite simple, and we're just going to select these two right here, 7 to go into top view. And I'm just going to hit E to extrude and extrude it to about here. And then I'm going to E to extrude it one more time to right there. All right, then we're just going to select these two right there. And let's hit 3 to go into side view, make it easier on us. And I want to, let me bring this back just a little bit because it's a little bit out. All right, once again, select these two, Control, right click, and we're going to do it once right there. Again, we're going to try to kind of align it with these. I don't think we're going to be modeling those necessarily, but just for good measure, and that way you could kind of follow along. We're going to Control left click another one here. Control left click another one here. And I also want to, when you're modeling, you want to keep the spacing somewhat relative. So for example, these are kind of long like that. You don't want one super long like that. You want it, again, kind of relative. And the most ideal is kind of a grid-like squares. Now for here, again, we're blocking it out. We will be adding in more geometry as we go. It's always better to add too few geometry and then add it later than add too much geometry. Because if you add a bunch of geometry, it's going to be overwhelming. You're going to have a bunch of vertices everywhere. So I'd rather add too few geometry and then later on come in here, add in some loop cuts if needed. Again, keep that in mind. Just like with the sculpting, we did the blocking of the sculpting and then the details. Same thing with modeling. You want to block it out and then add in more geometry. And then I'm going to hit Control left click one more here. And then Control left click right there. And then hit E to extrude and merge these together and hit G so that they do snap together properly. And then I might Alt left click, rotate these and just adjust it a little bit. All right, so we got a nice little loop cut around the tail. Beautiful. Now we want to do the fin. Now for the fin, it's a little different because it's kind of away from all this. So we will do it differently. Yes, adaptation. We got to adapt to how our model is. So I'm just going to go ahead and select these two vertices right here. And in side view, 3 on the numpad. That was not 3. I'm going to hit Shift D, copy these vertices over here. And I'm just going to hit R to rotate them and place them about right here. And now I'm just going to Control right click once, 2, 3, 4. So 4 times right there. And then we're going to, obviously we want to go all the way around. So Control left click one more time here. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. And then right here, we're just going to shift select all 4 of these and hit the F key to fill that in. So now here we have, you can see we have 10 vertices here. And usually it's pretty good practice to keep your loop cuts, or try to keep it, especially in the beginning when you're first modeling it, to an even number. So 8, 6, 10, 12, etc. Because sometimes, well, if you keep them all into even numbers, it's easier to match them up. Because sometimes if you have like 13 here and like 12 here, it's harder to connect them all together. In fact, let's see how many we have here. You can see that we have 8 vertices here around the loop cut that goes there, which is perfect. Alrighty, sweet. So we got in kind of the major loops that we would need for the fish. Let me see if we need any others. As far as I'm concerned, this should do it. And in the next video, now that we got our major loops in the next video, we will basically be doing secondary loops and filling in some secondary parts, such as part of here, the face, etc. So let's save this file, save as, and name it Sushi 8. Okay, maybe I should just go get some sushi, eh? All right, 8. By the way, I cannot wait to see your guys' fish. I'm super excited. Make sure to share your finished result on BlenderMania3D.com, or if you need any questions, post in the forums there. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now. Au revoir. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and add in some more secondary loops around our fish, shall we? So for this, I also want to make it visually easier for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the color of these ones right here. Let's change the color under the viewport display. Let's make these primary loops red color. And then these secondary loops, we'll make them a green color so that we could kind of differentiate between the two. So let's get right to it. I'm going to we'll rename this one red, obviously. How obvious is that? And we'll hit new and we'll rename this one green, like that. and change the viewport display color to green. And again, this doesn't do anything. This is just for us visually to be able to see it better and get a better visual for it. Wow, brilliant. All right. So first thing I want to do is over here on the face, I want to add in some loops around our eye. So right now we have a major, the major mask around the whole part of the eyes, which is nice. This part right here. However, I want an individual loop around the eyes as well. To do that, I'm just going to Alt left click this whole vertex loop right there. And we're just going to hit E to extrude, right click and hit the S key and scale it in a little bit like that. Now we're just going to hit Control plus, which will increase the selection. Check that out, super cool. And then on the green material, let's click Assign so that it assigns this. Oh, look at him. Now he's a superhero for sure. So that it assigns the green color to this loop right here. Now, obviously, we got the same kind of loop as here. I want to loop just around the eyes individually. So to do that, we will use, once again, the Rip tool. I'm going to select these two vertices right there. Hit the V key. And by the way, when you're ripping, it depends where your mouse is. So if your mouse is over here and you hit the V key, it will rip that way. If your mouse is over here and you hit the V key, it will rip that way. V key, rip that way, etc. It will rip depending on where your mouse is positioned. So here, I'm just going to hit the V key and rip that. That was not the V key. V key and rip that right there. And we're gonna reconnect all this in just a second. Then I want to select these two vertices right here, and I'm going to hit the E key, and I'm going to extrude this and bring these vertices into the corner of the eye right there. And then we're gonna hit the E key one more time. Actually, we're just gonna connect it for now. So what we want to do here at the top, once again, select these two, hit the V key to rip. Let's move these right here. And I'm just going to select 1, 2, 3, 4, those 4 vertices. Hit the F key to fill them in. And you can see that now we got a nice loop that goes around just the eyes. And then we got this other loop right here, which we broke, so we need to fix. So to fix this other loop, I'm just going to go into face select mode 3 on the keyboard and shift select these remaining green faces right here and hit X and delete the faces. Then we're just going to select this vertex here, shift select this one right here, right click, merge vertices, which is down here, and we're going to select at center, and it's going to merge them. We're going to do the same for the top right here. Select that one, shift select that one, right click, merge vertices at center, and boom, look at that, we have Batman fish. So now, once again, we have a loop cut around here and a loop cut around there. So these are kind of the two major loop cuts that you want to have around your character. The mask that goes around the whole face area, kind of like a raccoon mask, and then the eye right there. All right, brilliant. All right, now what we want to do is go ahead and connect these up together. The way we could do that simply is shift select all these edges right here up until this part, and then we're going to shift select all of these ones as well. So basically the opposite edges are selected, and in edge select mode, we're going to right click and select bridge edge loops right there, and boom, check it out. It will bridge it and fill it in nicely like that. Pretty sweet. All right, now we're going to go ahead and continue with this. Let's select this one right here, shift select this one right here, and we're going to hit the F key to fill that in. And then what we want to do is do the same for right here. Select this one, shift select that one, F key to just fill that in. And there we go. Now, obviously, it's not really connected that good. We need to add in a loop cut here. We're going to hit Control R, left click, and then just right click and hit G to bring it in. And then with this vertex here, we're going to select this vertex, shift select that one, and right click, you guessed it, merge vertices, and at center. Boom. And there we go. And then we could adjust this a little bit, bring it out. Again, you want the topology or the flow to be nice. You don't want like this over here, this down here like that. You want it to flow around nicely. So now we got that going. Let's go ahead and change these to the red color. I'm just going to select them, go to red, click assign. It'll just make it a little bit easier to visually see. All right, now let's add in some more secondary loop cuts right here. We're just going to select this edge right here, shift select that one right there, and hit the F key, and we're just going to fill that in just like that. Yes. Now we're going to go to the green, assign that there so we can see it's a secondary loop. And then here we're just going to add a couple loop cuts. For now, let's hit Control R and scroll your mouse wheel up to, let's do it to 4. So 4 loop cuts, left click, right click. And because we have snapping on and the shrink wrap modifier, it automatically conforms to the mesh. Pretty sweet. And now I'm just going to hit G and grab this and move it around, which will conform it to the mesh even more when you grab it, because then it will snap to the mesh. And there we go. Just make sure it's kind of somewhat aligned and nice and straight. All right, so there we go. We have another secondary loop there. Let's continue adding in a secondary loop through to the bottom. I'm going to select this edge right here at the bottom and just hit E to extrude and connect it together. And then once again, select this face, go to green, assign it to green. And I'm going to hit Control R, add in 2 loop cuts here, left click, right click. And now I'm just going to hit G to grab it, because before hitting G, it doesn't conform as good, but when you hit G, the snapping takes effect, and you can see that it conforms very nicely. All right, there we go. We got we got our fish there. Let's see, and a good test of this is to select, well, we can't really select our cube, but let's go over here where the fish is, the cube, and uncheck the eye so that we cannot see it. And now we could see what our topology looks like. And right now, honestly, it doesn't really look like a fish. It kind of looks like a frog. But you know what? A frog and a fish have somewhat similar looks, so we are doing good. And you could still see that it's some kind of animal. Some kind of animal. All right, sweet. Now I just want to do a couple more secondary loops. I'm going to go ahead and right here, we're going to hit Control R at the very top here. Control R, add in, let's add in 2 loop cuts for now. Left click, right click, and I'm just going to hit G to make sure it snaps properly. And then right here, once again, I'm going to select that edge right there. So the middle one right there. And by the way, let's connect this as well, because I don't like that hole. We're going to select both of those and hit the F key and then assign it to the red. I'm going to select this edge right here, so that one. And we're going to hit E to extrude. And let's just extrude this all the way down here to about there. And then right here, we could see how many loop cuts we will need to connect all this. So right here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm just going to hit Control R right here, type in 7. You're like, 7? You just calculated 8. What kind of magic and craziness is this? Well, if you put in 7 loop cuts, if we left click and right click, and then hit the G key right after, because otherwise it goes freaking crazy. Hit the G key to reposition them. You can see now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 edges right here, because we added 7 loop cuts, but it gives us 8 edges. Yes, aha, math. Brilliant. Now, for these, we definitely want to align them a little bit better, because this one, you can see it's like that. So what I'm going to do is just hit G twice. Let's edge slide this up so that it aligns with here. And then we'll fill this in just a second. Let's grab this one, G twice. Bring that in here so it aligns with there. Select this one, G twice. Bring that, whoa, look at it. It's like one of those crazy ladders. I forgot the name. G twice. Bring that here so that it aligns with that. And again, we are just aligning all of these together. Come together. right? I don't know why I sing in these courses, I swear. I've probably lost some students from my singing. All right, brilliant, just like that. All right, now we're going to do something cool, which is grid filling this. Because as you can see, all of these line up nicely. However, right now we have to, we're just going to fill this bottom part. So select these two edges, hit the F key to fill that. And we can see at the top here, we have 1, 2 edges. So right there, we have, again, 1, 2 edges. So here, we're going to hit Control R, left click, right click, and then just hit the G key so it kind of conforms there. So now we have 2 edges here as well. And again, if we Alt left click here, we could just see that all of this is just a grid-like pattern. Everything lines up. So what we could do is Alt left click this loop right here, which is already selected, Alt left click it. So we could go to Search, Edit, Operator Search, which is also F3, and just type in here grid fill. And you can see right here it says grid fill. If we select grid fill, boom, check it out. It automatically fills in the grid and the area that was missing there. And again, this is only done if it aligns up perfectly as it was doing there. So look at that. Our fish is coming together nicely. All right, one last thing before we finish off this video, I want to add in one more secondary loop. And right here, we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing that we did here. We're going to select this edge right here, 3 to go into side view. That was not 3. Our fish is coming together very nicely. We're going to hit the E key to extrude this to here, R to rotate, and let's hit S to scale to. I'm just going to hit G and grab it. And let's see how many edges we have here. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4. And then right here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 there. So we're probably going to add in more loop cuts here and here. And then with this selected, let's go to the green, click Assign. Make sure the face is selected, click Assign on the green. And I'm going to hit Control R, add in 3 loop cuts, or actually 3. I'm going to add in 4 loop cuts, left click, right click, and now I'm just going to hit G so that it conforms there nicely. And then let's grab the bottom edge right there, E to extrude once, and then E to extrude one more time, and just snap it together there. And that way we just have another loop cut right there, or edge loops, so that we could connect it a little bit easier. All right, sweet. Let's go ahead and save this. File, save as, fish number, no, I'm just kidding. Fish number 9, sorry, I can't count now. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now. Au revoir.